Well, let's begin today tonight's show with talking about a subject very close to home for Adam, and that is the Packers, and maybe a problem with the Packers as well. I mean, they did just beat the New York Giants 27-20 over the weekend. Now sitting 6-3-1, second in the NFC North. Have got the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears competing with them to try and take that top spot. To try and win the division. I suppose Packers are still in it to try and win the NFC North. But Adam, it's not all cheese curds and gravy for you guys over in Green Bay, is it?
Thankfully, no. I don't think I'd want that. No, it's not. It's not been. It's difficult because obviously, like the record kind of speaks for itself that they're doing okay. 6-3-1. It's not the end of the world by any stretch, and they're clearly still in the division. But I feel like that's mainly more due to the Lions sort of slipping up a few times as well, rather than just us. But yeah, it's not been great. I mean, which angle do you want me to go down here?
Or which angle do you think's the worst?
Well, see, I feel like it's a lot of people are sort of. I think a lot of Green Bay fans are going on Matt LaFleur is what they're going for the most, rather than anything else. And I just kind of feel like that with him and Jordan Love, because there's criticism for both, but a lot of fans are going for LaFleur, and I just kind of feel like the problem isn't necessarily that either one of them is the real main issue here. I actually just don't think they particularly gel that well together. I think the way that, if you think about the way that Matt LaFleur wants to coach the team and his play calling, and when you think about where he's come from, and he's come through the Shanahan coaching tree and the McVay coaching tree and all that, it focuses very much on having a strong running back. And, you've had Todd Gurley, you've had Kyron Williams now as well at the Rams, you've had Christian McCaffrey with the 49ers. And it is very much about having that strong running back. And then you have a quarterback who, they can be really, really good. I mean, Matthew Stafford has been great for them. But Jared Goff, a lot of people wouldn't come out and say that Jared Goff has been the best quarterback around, yet he got the Rams to a Super Bowl sort of thing. When it comes to the 49ers, you've got your Brock Purdy's and people like that, with Mac Jones. They're winning games, but they're not the best quarterbacks. I think where the problem comes in is they're very happy, them sort of guys, to take the short passes. They're accurate passers, aren't they? That's what they are. I feel that Jordan Love is not. He isn't that. He's not, like, if you want to take it purely from a Green Bay Packers point of view, he isn't Aaron Rodgers. He's more Brett Favre. And when you remember Favre, it was a case of, like, there would be loads of he would throw the ball loads of times, and some would be interceptions, but there was a lot of good plays in there as well. And he'd get into a rhythm, and you'd do it lots and lots of times. And the more he threw it, ironically, the better he got. And I think that that's kind of what you're dealing with Jordan Love here. So for me, you've got a quarterback who needs to keep throwing the ball and isn't really getting them opportunities to have high games where he's throwing the ball all the time. And I think that is kind of almost like it's stunting him to a certain extent. I mean, if you look at some of the game logs and the amount of times that he has passed it, against Dallas, he had 43 attempts. That's that's very high, but it's kind of like that was one of his better games. Against who else was it? Again, say like against Pittsburgh. 37 attempts, 29 completions. It was high passing volume, looked a lot better. You then look at some of the other games this season where it's like in the first game against Detroit, he was all right, but it was all kind of quite small, dink and dunk, and it's about having other guys like Tucker Craft and Josh Jacobs, especially, who are kind of getting yards after the catch, and that seems to be how Lafleur wants to play. So I feel that the two just don't really mesh that well, and that's why I think you're starting to see this sort of it's going okay, but it could be going better. It is kind of what I would say.
Yeah, looking at the passing yards he's had in the last 10 games, only 5 of them has he gone over 200. So half of them games, Sky. And I get where you come from. That it does feel like Lafleur is a rush first style coach, and that does limit Jordan Love to a degree. However, the counter argument is, I think, when we say that Love isn't as accurate as Rodgers and he's more like Favre, and we've said this on this podcast a lot of times, is that Love is a lot more of a gunslinger like Favre than he is a sort of precision QB like Rodgers. Do you think that Fleur's sort of using the running system because he's trying to protect Love more? Because he's had a lot of interceptions in his career, and he's one to gunsling and he's one to go a bit gun ho. And is it more of like I'm trying to keep a cap on him because it means we retain the ball better? And you listed off the running backs there, Adam, with San Francisco and with LA. I mean, you've got a pretty good one yourself in Josh Jacobs, and you had two pretty good ones in Aaron Jones and Dylan as well. The season, but not last season, the season before that, I suppose. So, Sky, do you think he's doing it to sort of just keep Love in check? Is it a game plan thing, or is it more of a, maybe luring these teams towards the back end of the season in a bit of a false sense of security?
I do think that he's a coach where I remember saying to Adam, I think it was off air last week, that even when I was in Green Bay or around the area in September, there was already question marks about like his play calling and stuff. And I think he's clearly such a smart offensive mind that maybe he overthinks certain game plans. Like that Eagles game was probably one where they could have been attacked, but it didn't happen. He just kept calling so many inside zones. You saw the memes about it. But like even this week with Jordan Love, like I think it was 7 drops.
Yeah.
And that's happened before with these Packers wide receivers. I mean, it's lucky that Christian Watson has come back and sort of emerged as a guy who can make big plays, because I feel like this has happened like more than a handful of occasions where we've looked and gone, wow, if they just had a wide receiver one, which they were Matthew Golden's a rookie, but if they just had a standout guy, then I think we might have a different narrative over Jordan Love. And again, if it was a few adjustments on the play calling. But yeah, the protecting thing, Fred, that might come into the element of when you do get those drops and he thinks, oh, I don't want my quarterback to get frustrated and force something even more. Let me be a bit more conservative with the approach here, because we are playing a team that's only got 2 wins and we'll still find a way, because, the defense stepped up. Evan Williams got the interception late on. I think it was more, without being harsh on the Giants, it was more a game where Matt LaFleur probably thought they're going to beat themselves at some point, and we've got difference makers, so we will be fine. I think the big concern is just how does the play calling go forward when 5 of your next 7 games are NFC North opponents? That's going to be where the big test is, because whilst I think they are a resilient team, they are messy, and you can't be messy against the Lions and the Bears and even the Vikings to a degree.
Yeah, all these NFC North teams, they're going to punish you if they get given the opportunity, aren't they? Say they get to the playoffs. I think they will, but say they do, wild card, let's say, rather than winning the division. Well, we can play both scenarios, I suppose. And they do crash out straight away. Is Lafleur then under some scrutiny and maybe on the hot seat? Because from my point of view, he took over in 2019. He's 73-36-1. He's only missed the playoffs once, and that was in 2022. He's won the division 3 times and been to the NFC Championship twice. Admittedly, that was with Aaron Rodgers by his side. It hasn't been with Jordan Love. Now, they drafted Love. We know the story. I won't go back into that history again, but I think it's got to be some stuff on Jordan's shoulders here, where we've given you time to develop here, and you need to be more accurate. And this is what our offense is. He's known about this. Lafleur knows about him. And yet, as Adam, you pointed out, a lot of people are already getting on Lafleur's back already. And I'm not totally sure that's the guy that's the person they should be getting on the back of, when Sky alluded to multiple drops in multiple years. I have to admit, this year you've been actually pretty decent. This Giants game was a bit of an anomaly for you guys, but historically it wasn't at all, because that happened a lot within the history of recent. So surely there's got to be some onus on the players here as well, not just Lafleur.
Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment to come out and say it's not just the coaching. I mean, obviously, but then it's that same old story, isn't it? You get it in any sport. It's easier to get rid of the manager than it is to get rid of the whole squad of players, sort of thing. So it's a difficult one, but I think that it is fair to come out and say that the players, some of them maybe haven't performed as well as what they could have done. Obviously, there's been some, losing Tucker Kraft is a huge blow for the team in general, and they're just not going to be able to operate in the same way without him. So that's a massive loss. I don't think you can really blame anything on the defensive side. I think they've been pretty good this year and they've done really well. So that's fine. But I think the reason that Lafleur's getting the criticism is because it just feels very slow. Like the pace of play on the offense is incredibly slow. They want to run the ball all the time, and I think that that's probably what he's always wanted to do. When I think about it, when he was the OC in Tennessee, obviously, you had Derrick Henry, so it kind of like it made sense to do that. But it just kind of feels like this is what he wants to do. He wants to run the ball a lot. The pace of play is quite slow. It is about having a more accurate quarterback than having an aggressive quarterback, so to speak. And that it just hasn't been the case in Green Bay for the previous 30 years. It's a completely different way of doing it. And I think that people, obviously there was always that argument, wasn't there, when Aaron Rodgers was around, where it was like, who was actually running the offense? Was it Lafleur calling the plays, or was it just Rodgers changing it at the line and doing what he wanted to do? Which I think, when you look at how different it is now compared to what it was, it does make you feel like Rodgers was probably just making it up on the fly and just throwing it to Devontae Adams all the time. So it's difficult to get away from that. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's not just Matt LaFleur. Of course, it's not just him. There's multiple things, and there's going to be a lot of fans out there who are going to come out and go, "Just shut up. You're winning games. Shut." Compared to what other teams have to go through. So it's like it's not the end of the world. You're talking about a team who are who are still competing to win the division, and as you say, will probably be a playoff team. But yeah, I think there is I think Lafleur is. I'm not going to say he's on the hot seat, because if he gets into the playoffs, he won't go. Like, they won't get rid of him if he does get into the playoffs. Even if they lose one game, he won't. But I think if they don't make the playoffs, then maybe he does become like they will maybe look to make a change.
I just think it's like so ridiculous that
Yeah,
he's even like seen as someone that could be kicked out. Like, I mean, he's been incredible for you guys. And
the problem is they've invested, haven't they, heavily,
I suppose,
and they'll come out and go, "Now is the time. Now is." And if you can't make the playoffs in a year when the general manager has gone, here we go. Exactly, yeah. That's a problem.
I did want to double check though. You are only 15th in attempts in the league, and passing wise, you're 24th. So it's not a huge drop. That's not a huge drop. You've had 312 passing attempts to 278 rushing attempts, which numbers wise obviously doesn't make, obviously it's less rushing, but you're further up the board in terms of the amount of attempts, etc. That's neither here nor there. One interesting thing I did hear on a podcast I was listening to on Monday morning was, wouldn't it be really fun if Kevin O'Connell and Matt LaFleur swap places? Because Kevin O'Connell was such an air raid throwing offensive mind. And yet Matt LaFleur is such a running back mind. And actually, if you swap them teams, they would probably do very, very well on their retrospective teams, because that offense, JJ McCarthy, completely used to a running style offense. Two sets of good running backs. Aaron Jones is injured, but Jordan Mason, a good running back as well. And then O'Connell, yeah, right, he wouldn't have Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison over at Green Bay, but he still have a plethora of talent on that wide receiving room, because there's plenty of names to use throughout his game plan, I suppose.